So the Treaty of Versailles, I told you the other time that the Treaty of Versailles did a lot of things after the World War. The first one was that it was the Treaty of Versailles that created the League of Nations. It was one that was signed and ratified that gave birth to the League of Nations. The first international organization in the world, that is League of Nations. Then another thing was that after that, the League of Nations gave out some punishment, meted some punishment on Germany, of which I have made mention: the reparation, the loss of territory, and the demilitarization of Germany. That means they limited their military structure, their military capacity and capability. So that was the Treaty of Versailles. Now, this Treaty of Versailles had led to, because of the heavy reparation Germany had to pay, Germany was impoverished. The German land was full of hunger, full of disease, full of death and and it was full of a lot of casualty. And due to the loss of territory now, there was kind of resentment in the heart of Germans towards that Treaty of Versailles and towards the other countries in Europe. But because they wanted peace, none of them could fight, not until Adolf Hitler rose up and told them that, don't worry, I will fight for you. So the people were now fully the people fully supported him, because that was what even they wanted themselves, to fight for their what? To fight for their country. So that Treaty of Versailles now was what Adolf Hitler used, or was what prepared Adolf Hitler to behave irrational, to expand the territory of Germany beyond normal. That is abnormal expansionist policy, a very radical one that Adolf Hitler embarked on. So that was what caused it. Do you understand me? So the Treaty of Versailles was indirectly responsible for the outbreak of World War II, because Germany moved to do what? To restore everything that the Treaty of Versailles had taken away from them. So the Treaty of Versailles took away territories, took away money, took away the economic resources of Germany, took away the military capacity of Germany. But Adolf Hitler came to do what? To restore everything back. So thereby he disannulled the agreement in the Treaty of Versailles. Then the second point I will make mention here is what? The weakness of the League of Nations. Yes, this is one of the things that caused World War II. The League of Nations, that happens to be the first international organization in the world, was very, very weak. It was not strong at all. It was very, very weak. Absolutely very weak. As a result of its weakness now, it could not control the European powers that were there. So those people were misbehaving. Countries like Russia, countries like Germany, even France, all of them were misbehaving. All of them were busy doing what? They were busy expanding their territories as against the laws of the League of Nations. They violated the covenant of the League of Nations. The same way, one of the reasons that accounted for the weakness of League of Nations again is that the League of Nations did not have its own central army. The League of Nations had to rely on armies from member states, and it is not possible for a member to donate army to fight against itself. That was what happened in the case of Germany and USSR, that is Russia, USSR. So when Russia and Germany began to engage on their radical policy, there was no one they could not donate army to fight against themselves. So that is it. And then another thing is that led to the weakness of League of Nations was that US, that means the United States of America, was not part of the organization. And look at it, the United States of America, through their President Woodrow Wilson, was the one who created the organization. Imagine, the person who created the organization himself, or the country that created the organization itself, was not among the members of the organization. And what was the reason? Because of the American principle of non-entanglement with political affairs in Europe. So Americans stood aloof, stood apart from that League of Nations. So they did not join the League of Nations. So that accounted for another weakness of the League of Nations. And then another thing is that the League of Nations was seen as a toothless bulldog that can only bark but cannot bite. Because how? It could not control the European power there, like the likes of Russia. it could only control all these small country, the small country that had no power there. And then the League of Nations cannot make command. They can only do what they can only make petition, they can only make suggestion, and they can only give out a plea. So they cannot make a strong command and stand by it. No, because they could not ratify their decision, because their members themselves could not what, they could not reach agreement. So that was one of the things that caused what, World War II, the weakness of the League of Nations. Another thing is the rise of Adolf Hitler. I've already talked about the rise of Adolf Hitler almost 3 times like this. So the rise of Adolf Hitler caused World War II. And what was when the how did the rise of Adolf Hitler cause World War II? The reason for World War II that was pertinent to Adolf Hitler was that Adolf Hitler embarked on expansionist policy. You know the meaning of expansionist policy. Expansionist policy is a situation whereby a country move to expand their territory through war and conquest. So they will go to other countries, go to this country, wage war against them, and when they conquer them, they will add those countries to part of their own territory. So they begin to expand. Then they will set up a government in that country. So that means they are directly the masters of those countries. So that was one of the reasons that caused what. But you see, Adolf Hitler was busy bombarding Europe, was busy scattering Europe under Europe rule. So he was scattering Europe with his expansionist policy. He will go, yes, he bombarded Luxembourg, all these smaller countries, Slovakia and co, which do not make them what, which do not make them happy. Then another point is this: German nationalism. Yes, you may not really find this anywhere, but German nationalism. Now, what is German nationalism? I told you the other time that nationalism is a feeling to fight for one country, to fight for the cause of one country. Now, what were the nationalism there? One of the things is that what the German rulers, you know, Adolf Hitler was not the only ruler in Germany, but he was the head. So the German princes, the German co-administrator with Adolf Hitler, the rich men in Germany, they were the one backing Adolf Hitler. Don't worry, we will support you. Take money, take ammunition, go and fight. Because they themselves wanted Germany to be a world power. So they wanted Germany to be the number 1 world power in the world. So that was it. And then they wanted to get back all what they had lost during World War I. That is part of German nationalism. So they wanted to get all what they have lost back, and then they wanted to get back their prestige and honor, because Germany had already been limited to a particular place. So Germany was already isolated. Yes, Germany was already isolated from international system after World War I. But when Adolf Hitler came, he rose to do what? To return Germany back to the international stage. By doing what? By fighting their way through, even though it means to violate the covenant of the League of Nations and to fight against major world power, which he did. So German nationalism also caused the World War I, because Germany, the people of Germany themselves wanted Germany to do what? To rise back to power, to be a world power, to be a terrifying power in Europe. So that was why they really backed Adolf Hitler, that yes, we will give every support, just make sure our country raise back to what? The position of power. Then another thing is this. Another thing that caused World War II, or the outbreak of World War II, which is the 5th point here, is what? The failure of the Munich Pact or Chamberlain policy. Failure of Munich Pact or Chamberlain policy. You either call it Munich Pact or Munich Agreement. The Munich is spelled M-U-N-I-C-H, just like people who watch football, Bayern Munich. So this one is what? Munich Pact. That means it was signed in Germany. Or Chamberlain policy. Now, what do you mean by Chamberlain policy? You see, Neville Chamberlain, yes, was the was the leader of Britain at that particular time. Yes, was like the foreign minister of Britain at that particular time. So this Chamberlain policy is a policy of what they call it. They call the policy appeasement policy. Appeasement policy. You know the meaning of appeasement policy? To give out concession to somebody or to give out something to somebody so as to appeal or to whet down their desires. For example, now you know in Yoruba land when they say oh yeah let us go and appease this particular god, oh yeah jẹ́ ká lọ tu Ògún lójú àbí jẹ́ ká lọ tu Ṣàngó lójú, you know the meaning. Maybe the person the gods is angry, that particular idol is angry, or maybe a particular person is angry. Yes, let me use the case of husband and wife now. Husband and wife, if a husband is angry at his wife, you know some wife knows what to do to make sure their husband calm down and bring down the angry desire of their husband. You know they will know how to peace, they will know how to appease their husband. You know what I'm talking about. Let's continue. So in Europe then, Britain, France and all other countries came together. They noticed how aggressive Germany and Adolf Hitler had been. Or let me say Adolf Hitler, don't let me put the word Germany. They noticed the desire of Adolf Hitler, that the desire of Adolf Hitler was to almost conquer Europe. Like going to this country, he conquered this country, going to this country, he conquered this country, going to this country, he conquered this country. So they now called him together to appease him. That means they told him, come Adolf Hitler, what do you need? Please stop disturbing the hope and peace of Europe. Let there be peace in Europe. So they now offer him some things that, look, we know that you want to expand the German territory, fine. You want to expand Germany's territory, we will not stop you. We will not stop you. But one thing is that stop fighting in Europe. This is what we do. You will sign this agreement. Then we will give you this land. Then they gave Germany and Adolf Hitler some land, like Luxembourg, all these smaller country. They gave them to Adolf Hitler. Now, when they gave them to Adolf Hitler, now they now signed an agreement with Adolf Hitler that since we have given you this land, then you must not go and bombard or you must not go and fight against any other land again. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. So that was what the appeasement policy was about. The appeasement policy was like whetting the desires of Adolf Hitler. In fact, a particular person said the appeasement policy is an impossible mission. It's just like whetting the desire of an insatiable man. A person who is very, very thirsty. Now you trying to give them a tip of water, like putting your finger inside the water and releasing the water to the tongue of that man. It will be what? It will not be able to satisfy their thirst. It will not be able to quench their thirst. So that is how the appeasement policy is. So now you see in this scenario, Adolf Hitler's interest was to get more land in Europe, even beyond Europe, but he was disturbing the peace of Europe. Yes, the other countries were not ready to fight. Britain was not ready to fight. France was not ready to fight because they knew the aftermath of war. They knew that yes, we may fight now, but what will be the end of the war? Nobody knows the end of the war, and then nobody knows what will happen at the end of the war. So they were trying to avoid another war, to run away from another war. So that was why they called Adolf Hitler into a peaceful meeting. Please come. We don't want quarrel. They gave him those land and those concessions. Please don't disturb the peace of England again. But Adolf Hitler took that appeasement policy as a weakness on the part of France and Britain and other European power. He viewed that these people are not strong enough to do what? To fight against me. So that was why they came to beg me that I should stop fighting. That was why they gave me this small land. So about a year later, Adolf Hitler did what? He invaded Poland. Yes, he invaded Poland, which was one of the principal reasons why the appeasement policy was made. That Adolf Hitler should not invade Poland and some other land which were neutral land, because during war there are some places we call neutral zone. That means those places are not part of those who are participating in war. Yes. So Poland was a neutral ground, was a neutral land, peaceful and calm. And Poland happens to be one of the border of USSR. Yes, it happens to be a border neighbor to USSR, an open gate to USSR. That means an attack on Poland will be an attack on what? USSR, that is Russia indirectly, because when you attack Poland and you are able to go through Poland, then there will nothing that will hinder you and stop you from coming into USSR. So to safeguard USSR themselves knew the importance of Poland. So they were part of the people who appeased the desire of Adolf Hitler not to invade Poland and not to invade any other land again. So they gave him this Slovakia, they gave him Czechoslovakia, gave him all this Romania, gave him Lithuania and Luxembourg and all other small land. But those lands were not enough to quench the expansionist desire and thirstiness of Adolf Hitler. So he divided the agreement. What do I mean by divide the agreement? Devise the agreement was that he violated it. He did not respect the Munich agreement. So he saw that this agreement was a weakness in the part of Britain, France and all that. So he decided to take advantage of that and invade Poland. So this will lead me to the next point. Then invasion of Poland. That is the next point. Invasion of Poland by Adolf Hitler. I've already explained that Poland is a neutral ground, but due to the fact that this man Adolf Hitler invaded Poland, then it caused a great havoc in the mind of the world, the European powers like Britain, France, who did not even really want war, and Russia, because Russia, I already told you, Russia or USSR is a border neighbor to Poland, and then an attack on Poland is an attack on USSR then, or Russia. So Russia stood to help what? Poland. Then another point we can also make here is what? The attack of Russia, or the attack on Russia by Adolf Hitler in 1941. Yes, you see in 1941, that is I think June 1941, Adolf Hitler rose to attack Russia or USSR, because USSR is a country that USSR is a union that consists of what? 16 countries. Russia themselves and other 15 countries. Sorry, 15 countries. That is Russia and other 14 countries. So it's a very big empire. That is the USSR is a very big organization. So Adolf Hitler was sensing that if I should be able to attack USSR and conquer USSR and add USSR to our own territory, then Germany will be very, very big. So imagine Germany now with all the lands they have conquered before, and adding USSR to it, then Germany will have a lot of power in Europe. And remember, Ukraine was part of what? USSR before. Russia, Ukraine, Belarusia, Roman and all other countries. Think of other countries. Uzbekistan, all those countries were part of Russia before. We were part of USSR. Meanwhile, Ukraine happens to be the second largest country in USSR with what we know as wheat field. So they had good economic resources in Ukraine. That is wheat. Then Russia too also had what? Russia too was also one of the largest producer of arm or ammunition or weapons of war in Europe. So all this made Adolf Hitler to fantasize that if I'm able to conquer USSR, then we are free. But before that, before 1941, Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, I hope you know Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was the ruler of USSR. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin already had an agreement, yes, like an alliance, like a pact, that none of them will attack each other. And then in case of if there's any external attack on anybody or on any one of them, the other party will arise to help the other one. That is it. But as against the agreement in 1941, Adolf Hitler, because of his covetousness and unsatiable desire, did something. Surprisingly attacked USSR. That is Joseph Stalin USSR. So this came as a surprise to Joseph Stalin, who did not expect it. Why he didn't expect it was that they were friends. Both Germany and USSR were friends. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin were friends because they had signed agreements, and both of them were almost pursuing the same policy. Germany was referred to as Nazist, as a Nazist country. Adolf Hitler was Joseph Stalin was regarded as what, a fascist too. So they were both dictators. So they were good friends. But surprisingly, one of them took a serious Adolf Hitler took a serious attack on his friend. So you know that's a very serious case. The person whom you have trusted, you have signed the agreement, you are pursuing the same goal. Suddenly that person should turn against you. So this made USSR to think of what to do immediately. And what was that? Joseph Stalin had to retaliate back the attack. So that was when we have the Battle of Stalingrad and all others. So Adolf Hitler was actually defeated in his battle against USSR because what? Because of three main factors. Number one, because of the weather of USSR, that is Moscow. You know, Russia, the capital of Russia is Moscow, and Russia was part of USSR. So when Adolf Hitler was coming with his troop from Germany, when they came, they had to pass through Moscow. The only way they could pass through was through Moscow, and Moscow was Moscow is the coldest place in the world. Yes, coldest place in the world. So the weather condition there affected Adolf Hitler and his army, because they were coming from a very hot condition in Germany. So when they came into Russia, they came into Moscow, the weather there was not palatable to their heads, so it weakened most of them. So that gave Russians the chance to win them or to defeat them. Then another thing was that USSR received the support of both Britain, France and US to fight against Germany, because Germany was their common enemy now. Germany was their common enemy because Germany too had already go and attack US property on the sea. So that was one of the problems that brought US into the war. And then another thing is that Britain and France before, both of them were afraid to launch an attack on Germany because they knew that it would be disastrous. So both of them were very careful. But in the case of how USSR faced Germany, then they were giving their support. They gave intelligence support, material support, monetary support and military support to USSR to fight against Germany. Then another thing was that Joseph Stalin embarked on what we know as scorched earth policy. Scorched, SCORCHED, scorched earth, EARTH, earth policy. What was that? Scorched earth policy is the policy whereby when you know that this particular resources or this particular thing will be useful to your opponent, then you will destroy it. Now, when Adolf Hitler was coming with his army, Joseph Stalin had already gave instruction that they would demolish some of the bridge that would assist Adolf Hitler to cross over to where they were. So they vandalized and destroyed some property that could help Adolf Hitler and his troop or his army when they got to Germany. When they got to USSR. So all these factors led to the defeat of Adolf Hitler in Germany. So he returned back to Germany, although his health was greatly affected. So he lost that battle tremendously. Then another thing, the last point which I will say is what invasion of Pearl Harbor by Japan. You know, Japan was part of the alliance of Germany, that is the Axis power. The Axis power. Meanwhile, the allied power was what? Was France, Belgium, Russia and co. Good. But you see, in that same 1945, yes, in 1945, Japan launched a surprise attack on US colonial property. Yes, because the only colonial property, or let me call it the only colony that US had then was what? Was Pearl Harbor in Philippines. Yes, in Philippines. So that was what US was nurturing. But surprisingly, Japan went and launched an attack there. US did not even reply them. Do you know what US did? That was the first war in which they will use this thing we know as atomic weapon. Yes, the minute man. They call it the minute man, the minutest of all. That was the first atomic weapon they used in the world, and it was used by US. So when Japan launched the attack on US property, that is Pearl Harbor in Philippines, US went to the two important cities in Japan, that is Hiroshima and Nagasaki. US dropped the atomic weapon there, and everything in Hiroshima and Nagasaki was greatly affected, burnt down to ashes, just like the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Everything burnt down severely with no traces. So the release of this atomic weapon now made Japan and Germany to fear that, wow, this is a deadly weapon. So Germany surrendered. Japan also surrendered. That look, we are not fighting again. If these people could release just ordinary one weapon, and it can destroy millions of people and destroy a lot of property like this, how much more if they will now release everything? So Japan was afraid. Japan surrendered after US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The same thing, Germany too also surrendered. So that was the end of the war in 1945. Now let's now go to the effects or the outcome, the aftermath or the consequences of World War II. I have about 7 points here. The first one was what? Loss of lives and property. Yes, a lot of lives was lost during World War II. In fact, it was the most deadliest conflict in the world. When we say deadliest conflict, although we do not know the actual estimate, but it was estimated that roughly 100 million people lost their life or were killed. Roughly over 100 million people were killed during World War II. So it is the most deadliest conflict in the world that we pray nothing of such will happen again. And then during this loss of life or property, there's a particular point we need to note. That is the Holocaust. You know the meaning of the Holocaust? The mass killing of the Jew by Adolf Hitler because of his Nazist idea, and because Adolf Hitler belongs to the Iron Jew, Aryan, Iron Jew. So he believed that the Iron Jews were the most superior. Yes, that is racism. So because of his racist idea that the Iron Jew were the most superior and should be the only Jewish race in the world, so he gathered the other Jews that were not from Iron tribe and destroyed them. He destroyed about over 10 million people, 10 million Jews. So 10 million Jews lost their life during that Holocaust. So that accounted for more loss of lives during World War II. Then another thing is that World War II triggered the decolonization of Africa and Asia. Yes, you see, after that World War II, some major world power begin to get economically destabilized, like Britain, France, Russia, Germany themselves. Their economy was greatly affected. So when their economy was greatly affected, they could no longer maintain their colony. So those colonies themselves started fighting and agitating for independence. So that was why you see that the period, you know, what this world war stopped in 1945. But when you check the history of independence in Africa, you see that between the period of 1950s to 1960s, that was when majority of African countries got their independence. That was the effect of World War II, because this country had become weak. India got their independence, Nigeria got their independence, Nigeria got their independence, a lot of West African states, African countries, Asia countries got their independence after the World War II. Another thing is what? Occupation of Germany, Austria and Japan by US and other allied powers. Now what do we mean by that? You see, immediately after the World War II ended, so as to avoid war again, US and other people and Russia and France and Britain agreed to do something. So they now went to Germany and occupied there. So Germany was shared into four equal parts. One belonged to Britain, another one belonged to France, another one belonged to US, then another one belonged to USSR. Then another thing we need to know is this: Austria too was also what occupied by US. Then Japan too was occupied by what Britain and US all together. So another thing we need to know is this: another aftermath of the World War II is what the fall of League of Nations and the creation of UNO. League of Nations failed woefully to prevent World War II, because that was one of the major principal way it was purpose it was created, but it failed in its purpose. So the League of Nations was dismantled, the League of Nations collapsed, and then another new organization was developed, was created, which was United Nations Organization in 1945. Then another thing we need to know is that what World War II changed the course of warfare. Because yes, COURSE, that means the kind of weapon they used during World War II was very, very different. And then most especially the atomic bomb that the US dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan changed the course of warfare. That warfare has actually transcended beyond fighting on the land, fighting on water. Because in World War II they used aircraft. Yes, aircraft was used. Aircraft like aeroplane, helicopters, and other spatial machine was used. So it changed the course of warfare in transportation and in weapon. Then another thing, the second to the last point here is what? Establishment of bipolar or bipolarism in the world. Now what do we mean by bipolarism? Bipolarism is a situation whereby the political power in the world was situated in the hand of two countries, that is USA and USSR. And this point leads us to what? The last point, which is what? World War II resulted into Cold War. That is one of the aftermath of what? Of World War II. So one of the grievous consequences that World War II brought was what? It resulted into what? The Cold War. And what is the Cold War? The Cold War was why they call it Cold War was that there was no direct opening of firearms on both sides. So when we get to that topic, I will explain better. So thank you. God bless you.